Trigger warning. We will be talking about a pedophile, serial sexual assaulter, and a cannibal.
Ooh.
Yeah. Crazy. And there's some questions I have in this. So, like, normally I focus a lot on the crime, right? The actual crime that happened. There is so much information in here that while I was going through it, multiple questions popped up at the end, right? And I think those questions are more important than even this guy's story here. And what sucks in this is I really like to highlight the victims because they're the important part in this. They're the ones that unfortunately had to give their life, and it hopefully in situations creates change, so things like this can't happen anymore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It doesn't always happen like that, but in a perfect situation, it does, like a few stories we've covered. So we're going to be talking about Nathaniel Bar-Jonah. His legal born name before he changed it was David Paul Brown. Have you ever heard of that guy?
No.
Yeah, me neither. And the amount of crime that he did is insane. So insane. Like, tops some of the craziest serial killers out there.
Really?
Yeah, and never heard of him. So this man was born February 15th, 1957 in Worcester, Massachusetts, okay?
Oh, mine was in Massachusetts.
Oh, no way?
It's a Massachusetts night.
Yeah, that's funny. So, 25 known victims. Known victims.
Okay, so they estimate it's bigger than that.
Much higher. Much higher. All right, so I looked for background everywhere on this guy because that's really important for serial killers. A lot of times we find connections in their home life as they're being raised, growing up. Either they deal with an assault or trauma or something like that, which activates that serial killer sociopathic DNA, and it starts the whole cycle over again. You know what I mean? I couldn't find anything on him, so unfortunately. But his criminal history starts at a really, really early age, right? So he, based off everything that I was reading, seems like a normal appearing kid, except he had this really weird obsession at age 6, okay? He went to public school.
Okay.
His mom would receive calls almost daily asking her to talk to him, talk to Bar-Jonah.
From school?
Talk to him at school, come pick him up, because he had an obsession with picking his scabs, eating them, and then sucking on his wound nonstop, all day.
Like obsessively picking scabs and sucking the blood and stuff?
Eating his scabs and sucking on his own blood.
Oh, that's making me nauseous.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's disgusting, and it was obsessive. It was all the time, to the point where his mom had to have meetings with the principal, meetings with teachers. Students were complaining. The students' parents were complaining.
Can you imagine watching that? Like, can you imagine being in the classroom and you're like,
just the whole day,
classmate.
You're going to see a kid with his mouth on his body somewhere. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Nasty.
So literally everyone at school was weirded out. I can only imagine being back then, the amount of bullying that probably happened because of that, even at a really young age, like 5 or 6 years old. Kids are mean, man. Kids are sociopaths. They don't have a frontal lobe. They can't connect 2 and 2. They have no logical thinking. Everything's emotion driven, and they see something that weirds them out just a little bit, and dude, they're vultures, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So anyways, that was at age 6. 1 year later, age 7, in 1964, Bar-Jonah encountered his first victim. So he was 7 years old, and his first victim was 5 years old, a 5-year-old girl, and he told her that he has a Ouija board that can read the future. He lures this girl down into his basement to look at the Ouija board and starts strangling her.
He's 7 and she's 5?
He's 7 and she's 5, and he starts strangling her. In between gasps of breath, she gets some screams out. His mom, because they're at his house, comes down to the basement and stops him. She gets let go, runs home, whatever. But she stops him from ending her right there. And in multiple different articles that I was reading says he wasn't held accountable. Like, there was no punishment at his house for things like that.
Oh my gosh.
Not to mention, being singled out at school, I'm assuming, but not even having accountability and punishment at home to understand, like, these things aren't okay,
like, you could have killed this child, and
yes,
that is, like, the worst thing you could ever do?
Yep, absolutely. So the next victim, we have a little bit of a time jump. And what is really important in cases like this is all through the history of serial killers, serial sexual assaulters, any of the serial assaults, right? However they end with a living victim or a dead victim, is we never have their true history. Most of the time, it's like 50% at best, okay? So he already started, at age 7. The next time jump is at 13. He's 13 years old. He lures a 6-year-old boy to a secluded hill. So apparently it was during winter time. It was snowing. Says he wants to take this 6-year-old boy sledding, and then assaults him. It doesn't get physical.
Essay?
Yep. Sexually assaults him. And the boy lives, and there is no reported crime. It doesn't get reported to the police, so there's no
accountability again.
No accountability again. Yep, at 13. So he goes on. We have another time jump here. He's still in high school. In high school, he starts impersonating officers. Oh. You know how many serial killers and serial artists have impersonated officers? There's that weird power dynamic, and I think it's also the reason that we see a lot of officers end up being the aggressor and abuse, like they're overly abusive physically, that I don't know why the police idea brings such power hungry freaks, not all of them. I'm not calling all of them.
No, there's good cops out there, but there's something to be said about police brutality and being in a position of authority over somebody and having that control. It can mess with people's minds sometimes.
Well, I think a lot of the unhealthy people are attracted to that. And that unhealthy behavior also bleeds into guys that might have joined the force for the right reasons. And I believe in the police force. I think it's a good thing. It just needs to be managed very different. But that's a whole nother topic for another time. So while in high school, he starts impersonating an officer, and he abducted an 8-year-old child while doing this. He's seen while doing so. He takes him in front of a house, like on a cul-de-sac. Somebody in the house sees this happening, calls the cops. The cops show up, and the little boy is on the brink of death, like right there on the brink of death. And you know what happens to him for this?
What?
2 years of probation. Oh my gosh.
Dude. Like, I get he's in high school, but come on.
I started thinking while I'm reading through this for this story that no wonder we're having such crazy issues in society that we have to get over around sexual assault and taking advantage of people. Because, how many stories I've read from the 50s, 60s, 70s where none of these things got reported. Literally none of them. Probably because even, a 5, 6, 7-year-old little boy is raised in that society where men aren't allowed to talk about that or seem taken advantage of, so they're unwilling to bring it up even at that age.
Well,
you know what I mean?
What's funny is everyone who lived back then acts like the world was such a safer place,
Right.
but really these things were being
They just weren't talked
underreported.
about.
They weren't talked about. They were kept under
Yep.
wraps.
Yep.
So, and now we have the internet where we have so much more access to current events and news and information. So,
right.
I mean, I don't know if it was really that much safer, to be honest.
It doesn't sound like it based on a lot of these stories. It sounds like everything just didn't get reported. And what sucks is even back then when they did get reported, a lot of things didn't get followed up on or were squashed, So
they had the illusion of safety.
Right, but it wasn't really safe.
No.
We just want to make you think you're safe so that we can do what we want to you. Yeah. So, just days before his graduation, remember, he's on probation now during this time, okay? He gets on his little officer suit and his fake badge and gun, drives out to Hartford, Connecticut, abducts a 9-year-old girl this time. Starts assaulting her, same as the others. It gets repetitive. There's so many here. So he starts assaulting her and goes to drive off. And everything says that they believe he was going to end her, right? But she starts having a convulsion and throwing up in his car. And while driving down the road to who knows where, it's never been found out through him, he opens the door going 50 miles an hour and pushes her out.
She survived?
She did survive. But just the lack of human life. Like, ew, you're throwing
you mean
up
care? The lack of care for human life?
Yeah, the lack of care for human life. She starts throwing up and he just opens the door and kicks her out. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. Just thinking of that image is...
I mean, it's
hard to think of,
dude,
man.
That's like the least of what he did. Like...
Yeah.
That's horrific, but what he did to all the other people sounds like it was like a million times more horrific.
Yeah. And the worst part about this, another car sees him, okay? The cops get called. He gets arrested. They slap him with a charge and release him. That information never gets back to his PO officer. So he goes untouched. Yet again, this is number 4 that he's gotten away with.
This reminds me of the New Jersey case, Davina Janeo, and all the other little girls that were hurt in New Jersey in the 1970s because mental health facilities and cops and none of them communicated well.
Yep.
So there was all these predators released to the streets, and there were so many situations of predators living across the street from little kids, and those kids ending up assaulted and dead.
This is another situation like that even later in the story here, but a couple weeks later he gets released from probation even though he just got caught doing that, and he gets a handwritten note thanking him for his good behavior. Yeah, and that was on file.
This is gross.
It is. I know. So September 24th, 1977, he impersonates an FBI officer this time and picks 2 boys up from the movie theater, drives them to a secluded field, puts one boy in the trunk, goes to away from the car out in the field with the other boy, starts taking advantage of him, and then tries to suffocate him, so end him with his body. He had this really weird, I guess almost interest, fetish, whatever you want to call it, of suffocating people with his body. Yeah, really odd. I don't know if I've ever come across that before, but it shows up multiple times in here, and it's talked about in multiple of these articles. So this little kid, and it doesn't have his age. He has a lot of victims on here because this was 40, 50 years ago, that the ages and names aren't there. They're just removed, but they're confirmed victims. I don't know if back then they left it not public information, like they were allowed to keep that out or whatever, but... So this kid, prepubescent child, is smart enough to fake being dead. So
wow.
During the whole act, he fakes being dead so that BarJonah, whatever, gets off of him. And for the next few minutes, the boy lays there faking dead, even to the point of him flicking ash on his face with a cigarette and everything. And he fakes him out. So he goes and drives back to the car to go somewhere else with the other boy. The information where he was going is not known. That kid runs to a payphone, gets on the phone with the police. The police are able to pick him up, and both boys are saved in that situation. So thank God for his quick thinking in that. But
this guy is such an idiot about it, too, that it's like, how did he get away with it for so long?
I know.
Even back then, this is nuts.
It is nuts. It is nuts. So he gets charged finally. So he gets charged for 18 to 22 years. He's supposed to serve fully. Sometime a couple years in, somehow he gets transferred to an insane asylum, essentially, Bridgewater State Hospital, all right, where he told psychiatrists in their reports repeatedly about having sexual fantasies involving murder, torture, dissection, and cannibalism, and they release him 7 years early. Yeah,
this is exactly what happened in New Jersey.
He serves a 13-year sentence with all of this, him telling all of this to the psychiatrist, which is just so insane. 1 month later, he sees he's doing normal activity type stuff, going to the bank, whatever. He sees a car on a really rainy day. Apparently, it was so rainy you could barely see, with a young boy sitting in it. It's not his car. Obviously, he doesn't know the kid or anything. But he opens the door and tries to smother the kid with his body. Sits on top of him and tries to kill him. Weird, right? I read that. Like, what?
So weird.
The body smothering thing is really strange.
Maybe he wants to, feel it.
I don't know. He was a large guy, like 300-something pound guy. So he was a big dude. He had it there to be able to do it. I just have a hard time understanding that kind of interest. Like, you know what I mean? That's just such a weird thing to want to do. I mean, everything he does is weird, but that's just a not common thing to hear in these situations. But
really odd.
Yeah. So, somebody calls the cops, sees him again, okay? The cop knows who he is from the description and goes and questions him, okay? And he said that he didn't know that there was a boy in there, had no idea. And I know.
And he got off.
He did get off, yep.
Of course.
So he got 2 years of probation, and he had just gotten out, right? So he was supposed to be on parole.
Should have went back to prison.
2 years, yes. He got 2 years of probation, he got 2 years of probation with the promise that he was going to leave Massachusetts. He moves to Montana with his mom, okay? And this is where things start getting crazy. He lives with his mom half the time. He has his own apartment half the time.
What kind of mother would be a part of that?
I
If my kid had all of these allegations, I'd be begging the cops to lock them up.
But you got to remember, he literally only has one charge. He's got away with this for like 30 years at this point.
True.
What is going on here?
True.
So, in Montana, he starts building a reputation for collecting toys. Obviously, he's already starting his hunting. So, he's known for having a huge collection of Star Wars toys. But not only that, he works on his collection all week long for toys, and then every weekend has a yard sale for toys.
To attract kids.
To attract kids. Yep. To attract kids. So, his first brush with law enforcement in Montana was December 1993, when he was accused of molesting an 8-year-old boy who he was babysitting. And he got away with it. So BarJonah went to court and told them,
just pissing me off.
Yeah, he said that if he did what they're claiming he did, the boy wouldn't be alive right now, and he got let off. Crazy.
What in the world?
I don't know. I don't understand. Now you see why I start having questions while I'm reading through this. So,
did somebody on the inside vouch for this guy? This just doesn't make any sense.
But on February 10th of 96, a 10-year-old. Do you remember hearing about the disappearance of Zach Ramsey?
No.
Okay, so Zach Ramsey got the most attention in this situation. A lot more than the guy did. Went too far here. All right, so on February 10th, 1996, 10-year-old Zach Ramsey disappeared on his way to school. Witnesses saw in the general area an off-white, sedan-type car. All right, told the police about it. And they said that right before that, they saw an obese man chasing after him. So this police detective, Detective Bill Belushi, worked the 8-year-old case who he was babysitting a few years earlier, and just had a feeling, okay? So he got sent in all the records of nearby sexual offenders. That cop chose to ignore all those records, didn't check up on a single one of them, because he was so sure that BarJonah did it, okay? And he starts investigating him, going to his house, harassing him, essentially starts talking to other people, finding out that there was an obese man who was chasing him, just seen earlier that week. He found out that his mom had an off-white Toyota Corolla in her at her house, so that was most likely the car that was seen in that general area. Makes that almost sense. Hit Zach Ramsey and seen leaving the scene. He tries a couple times to get the okay to search his home, and for whatever reason, the judges keep turning him down. Ugh. Yeah. And then So 3 years go by. 3 years go by in this case, and he's seen outside of an elementary school for the third time in days, wearing a dark blue jacket and knit cap. So just remember here, the officer has already been searching him and investigating him for 3 to 4 years, okay? And the cop starts thinking, hey, how's he getting away with these things? I don't understand it. Makes the connection between the blue jacket and the cap, and asks the judge for the approval to search his home based on him impersonating an officer, okay?
Okay.
So this is where it gets super interesting. 2 days later, they are granted the search warrant for his home, where they find, they find multiple journals, multiple different news clippings, multiple photographs. He had 3,500 photographs of children. So the actual number that of victims he had, there's just no way to know. 3,500 photographs that were taken by him, okay?
That's crazy.
Crazy, okay? He has in his journal an entry for Zach Ramsey, and labeled next to it is died, D-I-E-D. Multiple news clippings on the disappearance. Then, as they're searching his kitchen, they find a homemade cookbook that has titles in it called Little Boy Pot Pie, French Fried Kid, Little Boy Stew. Yeah, insane. So they start searching more things, and they find there's like a weird pulley in the garage. They search under it for blood. They find that there is human blood there, unidentified human blood. They found like 10 different DNA samples in his home. Under his meat grinder, they found the hair of 2 boys, 3 different DNA types.
Did his mom know anything?
He had his own apartment. Oh. But no, some of the crimes were committed at his mom's, and no, she didn't. So I don't know how old she was. I don't know. I have no clue whatsoever.
Probably pretty old at that point.
Could be.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. So, he ended up obviously going away for life. He got sentenced to like 130 years here. But as they were doing the investigating, they found out that almost every weekend he had a barbecue and offered food to all his neighbors. And his neighbors, once making the connections here, realized that all the meat tasted funny. So he told everybody that it was deer meat, okay? This man's 375 pounds. He told his neighbors that he did everything. He went and hunted the deer, he stripped the deer, he packaged the deer, and he cooked the deer.
Yeah, just replace deer with child.
Correct. Yep. So, absolutely disgusting. Can you imagine being one of these neighbors and just being a normal law-abiding citizen, and you think you're being nice, eating with your neighbor, whatever, and you're being fed a human body? Like, that makes me want to gag, man.
It's just
They found out that he didn't have a hunting license. Obviously
not.
Too heavy to do any hunting or anything like that. So,
he just goes and sits on little kids.
Yeah. All right, so this is where I'm at with it, right? And I feel awful for everybody involved here, but he was doing his crimes from the early 60s to the late 90s. Never should have got away with this for that long. Never. The known victims is 24. It's more than likely double that, maybe triple that. This is just what he's confessed to. All right? This guy obviously he got off on doing things in secret. Secretly feeding his neighbors meat, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Living this secret life, being a secret police officer. Like, he wasn't one of those serial killers that wanted to be known, wanted to be seen. So we have no idea what his real number here is. It could literally be anything. The times that we do see that he committed assaults were very close together, but then we also have huge gaps in that number too, right? And normally for serial artists and killers, it starts getting spread somewhat equally apart, like 3 months apart, or the assaults are happening, then it gets to a month and whatever.
They get shorter and shorter. Like,
correct.
It's like addiction.
Correct. Yep. Absolutely.
They need more.
So how do we prevent things like this from happening? That's where I'm at with it, because this should have never happened. There should have been a record already of him starting at 7 years old, right? There's things that I feel like can be wiped off a record, a mistake, a DUI under 18, a fight under 18, things like that. But when you're dealing with like sexual assault or a violent crime, like there's so many different mistakes on this.
It's so many, and it's like multiple states, and it's just, even though like it was all in one state for a long time.
A very long time.
How is the communication
for like 30 years
in one state that bad?
When he was on probation too, right?
Yes,
and,
that's when it should be the best.
Yeah, I agree. Probation and parole, that's what it's designed for. That's what it's there for. And we still weren't catching this guy. Was this a long time ago? Yes, it was a long time ago. We're talking 40 years ago at least. But this also bled into the 90s. Like, how, with all the technological advances we have, how do we not have a system where we're able to catch this better?
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Look at Epstein.
Unfortunately, these mistakes had to happen for us to have things like Megan's Law, with a registry that people can access on the internet.
Yeah.
Better communication between mental health facilities and the criminal justice
system. And he wasn't
system.
a registered sex offender.
That's nuts.
I agree. It is not okay in any way you put it. It's not acceptable, these kinds of mistakes, when your average citizen's lives are on the line. Their kids out there are on the line from freaks like this.
And I think there needs to be a specific registry for violent pedophilic offenders like this.
Yes. So in a situation where, well, one, if somebody ended a child's life during whatever they were doing, they shouldn't be let out, period.
No.
But I personally think that a true pedophile, prepubescent interest, should have check-ins their entire life.
Yes.
You want to live in society because you haven't broken any rules? Okay, serve your time, which should be way longer than it is already too, but when you get out, dude, ankle monitor, period. Sorry. You want to live in normal society? Ankle monitor.
Yeah, and you have to have regular, visits with somebody who
I
checks
agree.
up on
or random.
your health. Oh, yeah.
Because you can see red flags happening.
Yep.
You can see what they're looking at on the internet. I know we talked about this before, but if you have one of these guys and they keep going to this, design page, right, where it has kids wearing new clothes or whatever, and you notice this as their PO, that's something to look into. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
These things stand out.
I guess that I watched a documentary where a kid, he had a situation where there was a young girl who lied to him about her age, and she didn't want to press charges, and the DA picked it up anyway. And he's a registered offender now, and he's not allowed internet access, and he has a curfew.
Good. But I would be curious statistically how many molestations or assaults happen after hours. Does a curfew even matter, or do most of them happen between 9 to 5?
I didn't know that there was a registry you could be on where maybe it's because he's on probation or something. And that's a stipulation of the probation, and it's not just because he's on the registry. But I never heard of them having this a curfew, yes, but not no internet. I was just whoa. I didn't know that.
How long can you get away with that anyways? You can go to a corner store and buy a phone that gets somewhat okay internet. You know what I mean? You don't even have to use your name.
Burner phone.
Yeah, you don't even have to use your name to get a smartphone. You know,
Yeah.
you can go in anywhere as long as you have enough cash to turn it on for the first month or first and second month or whatever. They'll turn it on for you under any name you want. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Because the salespeople get paid for activating that line. So, you know, there's ways to get it done even if it's not supposed to get done.
Yeah.
I just looked at this entire case and was disgusted the entire way through. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the fact that I've never heard of this guy before. I couldn't believe the fact that he got away with this for so long. I just couldn't believe any of it. It's a problem. There's a major issue to highlight here.
Yeah, and I think we just have to be vigilant and make sure that the system isn't making mistakes like this now, because I feel like you won't hear about it till it's too late.
He ended up dying in jail, so he's no longer alive, but other people that might have the same affinities that he did that are in good health could still be alive right now. And I don't care how old they are. The type of person that can do these things, in my opinion, doesn't have a place in my society.
No.
So
they need to stay in prison.
Are we fixing these problems even from back then? Are we slowly uploading all the paperwork into the computer so that we can continue making these connections? Or are all the disgusting boomers, not all boomers are disgusting, but the ones that are disgusting like this guy, are they just going to get away with it? You know what I mean? Because he got away with it for far too long. And there are other people from this generation that are still alive that shouldn't be out there right now.
True.
And these are the things that I'm thinking as I'm reading this. You know, there's nothing I can do about these things now. They're in the past. The guy's dead. I feel awful for every person that this guy touched, you know, because I was assaulted when I was younger. I know how that goes. I know how long you hold on to these things. So it sucks to even have a memory of this guy and some of his victims, but
like BTK, like he didn't get caught until like a year or so ago.
I know.
Or wait, is it BTK?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it is
Or
BTK. He was a super old man or whatever. I remember reading the stories where he was sitting there like frying an egg, and the police gave him respect and didn't even put him in cuffs because he was so old. Like,
no, it was the Golden State Killer.
It was the Golden State Killer, you're right.
Because BTK was found in 2005, and I just remembered his face. I was trying to remember, because he goes by something else, too. It's not just the Golden State.
It was the Golden State Killer.
Yeah, but he goes by another name.
You're right. Yep. And he had a family and grandkids, and he hadn't done it in a super long time, but yeah, he got caught. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
He wasn't the Night Stalker, though.
Anyways, no, that's Richard Ramirez. Anyways, I'd love to know what you guys think. I would love to know if you have ideas how to help this not happen anymore. But yeah.
Yeah, and he was found off of one of those genetic things, which that's another great tool, is those DNA databases now to find murderers like this who shouldn't be out.
It really is. It really is.
Unfortunately, Golden State Killer was too old at this point to even do anything, so it's like he got to live his whole life.
I know.